Need sleepy. Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
It's now time for the Billy C. Morning Show, part of the Billy C. Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Morning Show. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing okay. Hope everyone had a great weekend. With some good fights on that we'll be talking about in a little bit. Today's show, she's being brought to you in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located in St. Simons Island, Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give them a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Don't forget, it's 15 minutes off of I-95 if you're heading south and you're not in beautiful St. Simons Island or any of the Golden Isles of Georgia. Then swing by, man. I'm telling you, it's well worth a 15-minute out of your way, on your way south of Georgia. I don't know. If you're on I-95, it's right off the exit, man. Right off the exit. Drop an email to me, and I'll give you exact directions, or just visit the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by JKJ Boxing Magazine. Want a free copy? Don't worry about it. I'll get you one. I'll tell you what. I'll get you one every issue that comes out. All you got to do is visit hey, Porky. All you got to do is visit www.billycboxing.com and click on the, you can tell it's Monday morning, right? Click on the JKJ Boxing Magazine cover, which is located on the right-hand side of the screen. And today's show is also being brought to you in part by, I got an extra page, my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And you could literally get a copy of Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, right now by visiting barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Find out why we got a 5-star rating across the board. Find out why we are currently negotiating to put this book on the big screen. That's right. Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest... Should I just start the show over? Jesus. Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. We are trying to get it on the big screen. Find out why this is a must-read for everyone, not just boxing fans. It's a piece of history. It's a piece of boxing history. But most important, it's a piece of Black American history. Find out what I'm talking about. Help me get this guy the recognition he deserved. Not only deserved while he was alive, but certainly deserves now. Tom Molyneux. Find out about this guy. Read my book. I got some emails to read. Also, some fights from the weekend. Errol Spence Jr., I think he proves he's the real deal in doing what, Keith Thurman couldn't do by stopping his opponent, Leonard Bundu, on Sunday afternoon on NBC. I will say this, Danny Jacobs, he may be able to fight a little. I still think he's a grossly overrated fighter, gets way too much credit for his accomplishments, with the exception of his big win over cancer. But aside from that, inside the boxing ring, he doesn't impress me. Well, let me rephrase that. He does impress me when I look at the way he fights against the level of opposition that he has faced, which incidentally hasn't been too tough. But his skills as a ringside analyst suck. That's right. They suck. Come on, man. When I tune into TV and I want to listen to commentating, I want to listen to guys that, can communicate in a way in which you can actually get something from it. Those commentators from the NBC, we're talking about NBC. What happened to Sugar Ray Leonard? What happened to the quality staff they had? Instead, Danny Jacobs, he's terrible. Terrible. He's right up there with Danny Garcia and Virgil Hunter and all those guys. They're terrible. Just because they're employees of Al Heyman, give me a break. It ruined the broadcast. I will talk about an exciting fight in the women's division. Heather Hardy against Shalito Vincent. All I'm going to say real quick is this. I was a little disappointed with the scorecards. I felt that the fight was extremely close, and as a matter of fact, I felt deservingly it should have been a draw. That's my opinion. I scored it 95-95. But it is what it is. I think that what we got was an entertaining scrap between Heather Hardy and Shalito Vincent. However, I think both their skills are way down on the totem pole. Maybe it's the best female boxing has to offer. I don't know. But because their skill sets were so even, we were treated to a good fight. But let's be real. Neither one of them are that spectacular, especially Heather Hardy. She's the least spectacular of the two. At least Shalito Vincent, seems to deliver her punches right. She seems to have a decent defense. I just don't think she threw enough punches and was in Heather Hardy's face. Heather was clearly tired out, and she needs to get some sun. Her legs were as white as milk. But anyway, that's what I think. And one last quick thought. Jarrell Miller, he's a fraud. A fraud. I don't know what they paid Fred Cassie to just decide to stay on his stool. But Jarrell Miller is a fraud. He couldn't be. Listen, he can't beat any of the top 10 fighters, at least in our rankings. When I look at our top 10, Tyson Fury kills him. Vladimir Klitschko kills him. Alexander Povetkin kills him. Luis Ortiz kills him. Deontay Wilder, he claims he's going to break Wilder's jaw. Wilder destroys him. Anthony Joshua, quick work of him. Kubrat Pulev destroys him. V. Glazkov destroys him. Artur Spitska destroys him. Bryant Jennings destroys him. I mean, come on. Jarrell Miller talks shit, but he's a piece of shit. He can't fight. He really can't fight. He's a joke. Athleticism? They kept saying, oh, he's so athletic. Well, did he do something that I missed? But was Jarrell Miller doing something in that fight that I missed? Because there was no display of athleticism at all. All I saw was a plodding fat pig. And they saying how big he is. He's 6'4". He's the same size as Chris Arreola. Now, compared to me, he's a monster. Compared to Anthony Joshua, compared to Tyson Fury, compared to Vladimir Klitschko, he's a smurf. Give me a break. They all kill him. What a fraud, Jarrell Miller. Everybody should stop writing about this guy. All he does is talk shit. He's never going to be able to back it up. He's looking for a payday to get out. Is this what boxing's become? My man, Coach, has been saying for 2 years now, maybe even longer, that boxing has become WWE. Jarrell Miller is a perfect example of why he is so right. Boxing equals WWE with characters and frauds and pieces of shit like Jarrell Miller. Give me a break. Got some emails to read. Jesse Perez says, hey, Billy C. Didn't see the Miller versus Cassie bout, but man, is Miller talking trash? Did you watch that fight, and was it legit, or did Cassie get paid? Listen, I don't know how hard Fred Cassie trained for the fight, and I'm certainly not going to accuse him from just taking a payday. But I will tell you this, Jesse. Jarrell Miller, like I just said, he's a fraud with a capital F. A fraud, a fraud, a fraud, a fraud, a fraud. Anybody that thinks Jarrell Miller is anything other than a fraud, a fraud, a fraud, a fraud, you need your head examined. He says, boxing ain't dead yet. Andy the Destroyer Ruiz against Jarrell Baby Miller. You know, I kind of like that fight, Jesse, because they're both frauds. Neither one of them have ever fought anybody. And, they both talk a lot of smack, although I give Andy Ruiz a lot of credit because he did lose, what did he lose, 100 pounds? He's still 500-600 pounds, but he must have lost a bean at least. So I don't know, man. I think that would be a good fight. Two guys that haven't fought anybody that likes to talk smack. And by the way, Ruiz doesn't talk smack even a fraction of what Baby Miller does. So yeah, I don't have any problem of it. He says this boxing ain't dead. Andy the Destroyer against Baby Miller is just responding to Jarrell Miller trying to call out Ruiz. Baby Miller needs to just shut the F up because he's a fraud. You watching? You're a fraud, Miller. Please stop with your bullshit. It's nauseating, and it's not what we need in this sport. Anyway, my man Mike from Michigan. Mike from Michigan. Haven't heard from him in a bit. He says, "Hey, Billy C, I was listening to your show earlier this week, and I got a correction for you. Sal was mentioning past fighters, and you were talking about great rivalries, and I thought it was a phenomenal topic. But Sal did say when Sugar Ray Leonard fought Duran for the second time, he waited too long, but he still did it. That's a paraphrase. My point is, and I love Sal, his commentary, his food, his waiting staff, etc., but it's well known that Sugar Ray Leonard picked an immediate rematch because he knew Duran blew up between fights and wanted that advantage. That's all for that. Also, okay, wait. Maybe in Sugar Ray Leonard's case, he knew Duran fattened up based on his big win. But traditionally, rematches, especially with rivalries, were quick. Just look at the dates when the best ones took place, like Gotti Ward and Sugar Ray Robinson, Jake LaMotta, and some of the ones we talked about on that show. So I don't know if I agree with that. But anyway, he says, sadly, I don't believe Ward-Kovalev will happen. Whilst both fighters fought less than great competition leading up to the fight, Kovalev's obviously made much more sense than Ward's light heavyweight version of Rod Salika. I just can't see this as a 50-50 fight anymore. I see it 60-40 Kovalev because he's fought real opponents who came to win, and Ward fought again a Rod Salika, and I just can't see Rock Nation putting their bread and butter into a fight where Kovalev could be favored. Do you see it happening? My hope is that Kovalev rips Ward a new a-hole because it's a win-win for both fighters. I'm an American, and I don't like Ward. I like Kovalev. I like his attitude, his demeanor. He reminds me of throwback fighters who fought the best, and Kovalev is trying like hell to fight the best. I just hope JDJ teaches Kovalev, and he's referring to John David Jackson, teaches Kovalev how to break a clinch and work better on the inside. I also believe John David Jackson John David Jackson to be a very underrated trainer. Any updates on Mago Abdulzamov? No, I know he's still in lawsuit. I will tell you this. As far as Rock Nation is concerned, the fight's going to happen. I spoke with some people inside of Rock Nation, and they're already planning on the fight, and they've already admitted to me that pretty much all their eggs are in the Andre Ward basket. And should he not beat Kovalev, which they all believe he can, Rock Nation might be in some trouble. I do think the fight will happen, and right now I agree with Mike from Michigan that the fight is tilted towards Kovalev. And I've said all along that Kovalev's going to beat Andre Ward, and I think he's going to beat him handily. I think that although Ward possesses much better boxing skill, I think that in the long run, Kovalev's going to wear him down. His power is much too much. Ward will not hurt Kovalev, and Ward's knee, which is pretty much of a wimpy knee, will not keep his bicycle running for 12 rounds. Kovalev will win that fight, and I think he stops him. But we'll have to wait until the fall for that. Thanks for the email. Got another one here. This one's from Alex T., the other Alex, if you will. Says, hey, Billy C., I can't get enough of Leonard Mason. He's a must-see TV for me. Last time we saw the explosion, one-punch knockout power, but this time I was equally impressed because he fell behind in the fight, changed up his game plan, and closed the show. All the fighters that are my favorites from the past are guys that could overcome adversity in the middle of a fight. I feel like I never see that anymore. Seems like today a guy goes out with a game plan, and even if he's losing, he just keeps that and keeps doing the same thing. Just let me stop for a minute. That's because we don't have any good trainers. We got rah-rah men. That's all we got today. We got rah-rah men that know a little bit about nutrition, and they cheer. They rah-rah. Some of them think they're psychiatrists, the way they talk to the fighters in the corner. It's a complete joke. What we got going on. And Larry Hazard and myself have talked about it on air many times. I think that trainers need to go through training in order to be licensed. And whether you realize this or not, to be a chief second, that means you're the main trainer for a fight. All you got to do is pay the fee, and you're in. You don't have to know how to tape up a hand, put on a glove. You don't even have to know the difference between a right-handed glove and a left-handed glove. All you got to do is pay the fee, and poof, you're the lead trainer for the night. It's a joke. Anyway, he's saying, I like seeing how a guy responds when things aren't going his way. The great fighters step up and overcome obstacles. I don't know what's in store for Mason, but I know I'll be watching. I agree with you. He was impressive in that fight. I had my doubts about Menard Mason because of his easy rise into the fight game with his, cab drivers and construction worker opponents he's been fighting in Louisiana. He says, I didn't know what was up with Steve Smoger on Friday night, but each time Mason scored a knockdown, Smoger gave the opponent a lot of extra time to recover. After he counted, he looked confused, like he wasn't sure what he wanted to do after each knockdown. I know it's easy to criticize when you're not there, but I think even Larry would agree that a ref needs to be able to quickly assess a fighter's condition after a knockdown and make a firm decision. Smoger looked unsure of himself to me, and that was scary. Listen, Steve Smoger is a joke when it comes to referees. Steve Smoger is a guy that loves the attention. He has no business being in the Hall of Fame. Him and Joe Cortez single-handedly, I can't even count how many fighters they probably put in a life danger situation because of their incompetence. Steve Smoger likes to rub his dick on people. If you notice when they go down, he's rubbing his privates all over him. It's sickening to watch. Now, I will say this. What he was attempting to do was something that Larry talks about. He was trying to break up the robotic, put your hands up, show me you're ready, take a step forward type of a thing that a lot of referees do, and fighters know what they have to do if they're in trouble. He said, move to the left, move to the right. I thought he was going to start doing the Billy C shuffle on 20 scotches, but all in all, the guy is terrible, and I didn't even want to see him in the ring again. He looks like he's become, basically, he could fill in for Humpty Dumpty if Humpty Dumpty ever needs a fill-in. The guy's got no neck, and he makes me look like Adonis, that fat little bastard. I'd love to punch him in the head, to be honest with you. But anyway, he says, but then when the end came, I couldn't believe Smoger was stepping in to break the fighters instead of waving it off. The opponent was literally out on his feet and being held up by the ropes. I thought we were one punch away from seeing a tragedy on Friday. If Magajanov didn't fall down himself, Smoger would have let this guy get hit again. Smoger's whole performance was strange to me. He's been the ref for some great fights, but that was because of the guys throwing the leather, not him. I agree with you. Steve Smoger shouldn't be allowed to referee. As a matter of fact, he should be banned from the sport, and I think it's horrific that the International Boxing Hall of Fame has him in it, along with Joe Cortez, two guys that certainly have no business being in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Remember what I say, referees are good when you can't remember which job they did, which fights they refereed in, because they didn't make a difference. You know, you can always remember the fair but firm bullshit from Joe Cortez. You can always remember Steve Smoger rubbing his dick on the opponents when they fall down and he picks them up. He can't wait for them to get up so he can get a little thrill. The guy's a piece of shit. Anyway, sorry for the language today. Anyway, I got another email. But it just got me going, you know. Anyway, my man Brett says, hey, Billy C., I hope you had a great weekend. I did watch the Miller fight versus Cassie, and I must say I'm not impressed with Miller at all. He seems capable of throwing only 1 or 2 punches at a time. He was breathing heavy with his mouth open. He was chasing Cassie around the ring and just bullied him against the ropes. Miller has a nasty habit of keeping his left hand low. When he brings it up, he paws it with like Klitschko to find the range. A heavyweight in the next class up from him will time it when he drops his left to fire a straight or a right hook and make him pay. Against somebody like Fury, Joshua Klitschko, I think he will get exposed, possibly against Wilder too, since he's had such a short night and such a big mouth, as well as high opinion of himself. I would love to see him fight Ortiz next. Pick on someone his own size. You hit it on the head, Brett. He's a fraud. I've said it before in the beginning of the show. He's a fraud. And the way he paws with that left, similar to the way Klitschko does, is, I think, for the same reason Klitschko does. Except the difference is Klitschko actually has a powerful right hand that he can put his opponents to sleep with. Miller thinks he does. The reason why he was breathing heavy is because he's a fat bastard. You know, he was a donut away from 300 pounds. Jarrell Baby Miller is a fraud. Brett goes on to say, because we celebrate, because his beautiful wife, Melinda, they celebrated her birthday. Happy birthday, Melinda. I wish I would have known. I would have given you a shout out before, but I won't say the age, even though Brett filled me in here. You're still young and beautiful, Belinda. And Brett, you know, I'm saying that meaningful because Brett's a big guy. Brett will squash me like a friggin' bug. So I don't want to piss off Brett too much. But anyway, they were celebrating Melinda's birthday yesterday, so he wasn't able to watch this Spence Bundu fight. He did say highlights later and thought Spence did well. He's got a great uppercut, a hook. He set up his body shots well with his jab and movement. I loved his body attack, too. He would certainly give anyone problems, and I'd like to see him fight Porter, Thurman, or Robert Guerrero next. This guy is on the cusp of being a real superstar and can't wait to see him fight again. You're right, Brett. Again, I think Errol Spence Jr. is the real deal, 100%. I'd love to see him fight any of the guys you mentioned. But as I would see it, I would hope that Thurman Porter would have a rematch and then the winner face Errol Spence. That's what we need. These top guys fighting each other. We finally ridded ourselves of the welterweight division of a cherry picker. So let's hope these guys can right the ship on that. I also want to give a shout out to Brett's son, Aaron, which I can't believe dropped me an email just to say that he was watching the show, and I was really glad, and it also made me feel really old because I remember when he was a baby. I remember when Brett and Melinda had Aaron, so I'm a little, I was a little surprised. I'm trying to count on my fingers and toes how old this kid could be, but I'm glad he's listening. And that's a good family affair going on up in Canada. And a little information from my man Brett. Remember Friday I was mentioning about how he gets to watch the show. He says they have an Apple TV box, which is similar to Roku. He says when you can, when the main menu comes up, there's a YouTube app there. And he can see and watch the channel right there on the big screen. So I believe that's similar to even with DirecTV. DirecTV has an area on it. I have DirecTV where you can bring YouTube up and watch stuff directly through them. So hopefully if you guys have the time and you want to watch the show on TV, you could check it out there. Or look on LDL TV. We're on their channel lineup. So thanks for all the info, Brett, and for the emails. And remember, if you take the time to drop me an email, I'll take the time to read it. Just drop them to me, Billy at TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com. BuillyCBoxing.com. So, the fights this weekend, like I said, Errol Spence Jr. proves he's the real deal, knocking out Leonard Bundu in 6 rounds on Sunday, yesterday afternoon, as the main event in Coney Island in Brooklyn, New York. I was loving watching that. You know, they kept saying it's the first time fights were being held, I guess, on network television and from Coney Island. But there were a lot of historical fights out of Coney Island back in the day. So FYI there, those guys, that horrific commentating crew on NBC was terrible. I will say this, Errol Spence Jr., totally the real deal. He improves to 21-0 with 18 knockouts. But I give him a lot of credit by beating Leonard Bundu. Remember, Leonard Bundu went the distance with Keith one-time Thurman, a guy that, totally, was a guy that I think is starting to slip. As young as he is, but Bundu only loses for the second time of his career, being stopped for the first time. He's now 33-2 with a couple of draws. It was an elimination fight, so we'll see what happens next. Errol Spence Jr. is now in line to fight Kell Brook for his IBF welterweight title. That will not be on the line when he mans up and steps in with Triple G. And based on how Kell Brook has put on that weight and the way he looks right now, I'd be surprised if he goes back down to welterweight. So you might see Spence fighting someone else for it or be awarded the title. So we'll have to wait and see. I just want to make a comment. Johnny Callis, who's the referee, who I actually like, and I've worked with him actually a couple of times, really screwed up in the 6th round. He got dropped in the 6th. I'm talking about he, meaning Leonard Bundu, by a body shot. Now, it was a clear body shot. I mean, I didn't have to watch the replay to see it. But Johnny Callis missed it, and he ruled it a slip. And even Bundu looked at him like, wait a minute. Aren't you going to give me 8 seconds here? Aren't you going to give me a count? And Johnny Callis continued the action. And as a result, Leonard Spence took care of Leonard Bundu, and it was a scary situation when he was against the ropes, defenseless, and took a couple of more shots. He did lay on the canvas for a couple of minutes without even moving or anything. He was taken to the hospital for precautionary reasons. All is okay with him, thank God. But I think Johnny Callis put Leonard Bundu in a really tough spot. I think he missed it, dangerously missed that call. And if I was in charge, he needs to be reprimanded for that. The bottom line is referees can't miss calls like that. It's better safe than sorry. I mean, sometimes they rule a knockdown when it's a slip, and we're all very negative on the referee, but at least the fighter is safe. It's like the old saying, it's easier to wave off a fight too soon, or it's better to wave off a fight too soon than too late. In this case, it's better to rule a knockdown, even if it wasn't, than to not rule a knockdown when it was. I think he put Leonard Bundu in some serious trouble, and I think that savage knockout was a result of that. So Johnny Callis, you effed up, my man. At the end of the fight, Spence says, I think this performance once again showed that I am one of the top fighters in the 147-pound class. Can't argue with that. Bundu, who was stopped for the first time in his career, like I mentioned earlier, he said, and I really took more value in this quote than anything else. He says he lives up to the hype. Errol was more precise than Keith Thurman. Errol threw more punches than Keith Thurman and was fresher in every round than Keith Thurman. I really tried to get up, but I couldn't. I'm okay, but I feel good. In the female fight, Heather Hardy beat Shelly Vincent in a 10-round majority decision to improve to 18-0 and 4 knockouts. Shalito Vincent loses for the first time in her career. She's now 18-1 with 1 knockout. Listen, I said it earlier in the show. I thought the fight was even. I thought it was a draw, 95-95, the way one judge had it. But the other two just like I said on Thursday that I predicted that it would be a controversial decision win for Heather Hardy, it was. 99-91. What the F fight was that, Judge Washington? And the same goes for 97-93. You can't possibly say that Heather Hardy won by that big of a margin. I'm sorry. I felt that the fight, I mean, I would have accepted 96-94. I would have accepted that for a Heather Hardy win. I personally had it even 95-95. There's no way 99-91. There's no way 97-93. I think that this fight was good for women's boxing. But then on the other hand, it showed that neither one of these two fighters are very good. They looked good because they were fighting each other. That's what I liked about the fight. I liked that the fight, put two fighters against each other with similar skills. And as a result, we got treated to an action-packed fight. But make no mistake, Heather Hardy is not a top fighter, maybe in the women's division, but certainly, listen, I thought Shalito Vincent looked more solid as a fighter with her technical abilities than Heather Hardy did. And if I'm Heather Hardy, I get out in the sun a little more. I mean, those legs, they were white as milk, weren't they? Unless she was wearing some kind of stocking. I don't know. Also on that card, former title challenger Claudio Murillo improves to 21-1 with 15 knockouts when he stopped extremely late substitute Luis Hinosa in the fourth round at 2 minutes and 55 seconds. Over from the land down under, in a light heavyweight fight, Trent Broadhurst won a seventh round technical decision over Sean Miller, 70-62. Three times with the way the judges scored that. I love John Scully. Love him to death. He's now working with Sean Miller. The one knock I do have on my man John Scully is, he's sometimes he looks for easy ways out for his fighters. And I'm not suggesting that happened in this fight, but because I didn't see it. But an unintentional headbutt kind of knocked Miller down. And according to the reasons behind John Scully's recommendation of stopping the fight was that he couldn't get his head clear. Now, if that's truly the case, I agree with John 100%. He's one of the best trainers in boxing, underrated trainers in boxing. But if not, if he thought that maybe his fighter was ahead on the scorecard, it backfired him this time. But I think that under my man John Scully, Sean Miller, I hope he sticks with John because John Scully could very well be that missing link that Miller needs. On Friday night, Jarrell Big Baby Miller improved to 18-0 with a draw when he scored a third-round stoppage over Fred Cassie. I said all I'm going to say about Miller. He's talking all kinds of shit. He says at the end of the fight, I knew it would take some time to get going. I was thinking 3 or 4 rounds. I heard him. My legs came alive. I touched his body. I knew I was going to get the stoppage. I knew he couldn't continue. He didn't want to. That's why I take my hat off to Wilder. I'll still break his jaw, but he at least finished with a broken hands. That's what champions do. Cassie didn't want to finish. He says, speaking of heavyweights, let's talk about him. Tyson Fury doesn't do the work. He's always complaining. He's always sick of something. I don't know what's wrong with him. Wilder, every 5 minutes, he breaks another finger. Look, it's just a matter of time before these guys are going to have to put up or shut up. Anthony Joshua, that's going to be a mega fight. I'm just begging for him to call my name. Listen, be careful what you wish for, Jarrell Baby Miller, because you're nothing more than a fraud. Any of those guys that you mentioned, including a one-handed Deontay Wilder, will kick the shit out of you. You're a fraud, Baby Miller. You're a fraud. As far as Fred Cassie goes, he drops to 18-6-1. No one ever said he was a world beater, but he did look like he went in there for a payday or didn't want to fight. Very much anyway. But in the lightweight division, Mason Menard improved to 32-1, proving that his last fight was no fluke. He scored a 9th round stoppage over Bahir Mamajanov, who I thought was winning the fight. Mamajanov drops to 18-3. So we'll see what happens with Menard. This is a guy that keep an eye on. Rock hard, mighty Mason Menard. Also, a fighter that I'm looking forward to seeing more, Bakayev Yubov, improved to 11-0 with 11 knockouts when he won a split decision over Kareem Mayfield. Mayfield felt that he won the fight, dropping to 19-4 with a draw. I thought it was an extremely exciting fight. I give Yubov some credit for staying in shape. He was throwing bombs. He is very limited with his boxing skill. He's got pop. He's got stamina. It was the first time he went past the fourth round. But at the end of the day, he needs to develop some skill to fight the upper echelon fighters. Remember, Kareem Mayfield moved up in weight to take this fight, 95-94 twice, and Yubiov got the fight 95-94. Those two were for him, and one judge had it 95-94 for Mayfield. Antonio Nieves improved to 16-0 with a couple of draws when he and Alejandro Santiago fought to a draw. Santiago improves to 11-2-2, 96-94 for Nieves, 96-94 for Santiago, and the tiebreaker for the tie, 95-94. 95-95. And one last fight in Japan, Katsunura Takayama improved to 31-8 with one no contest with 12 knockouts, became the WBO minimum weight title holder when he won a technical decision over Ruku Kano, who loses for the second time in his career. He's now 10-2-1 on the fight that took place in Japan. So that wraps up the fights for the weekend. I got some other news to talk about, but first, joining me right now is Dax Khan. What's up, Dax?
Well, first, as I've told you many times, it's 5-hour energy drink. You drink one, you get energy for 5 hours. You don't drink 5 in an hour. You're all worked up today.
I'm worked up because of Jarrell Baby Miller. I can't believe that he is talking. I mean, you know, Muhammad Ali started the I mean, there were other trash talkers behind Muhammad Ali, but Muhammad Ali made it kind of, you know, like a public thing, you know, like he used it to promote himself and everything else. And people hated him for it. A lot of people hated him for it. But the big difference with Muhammad Ali is Muhammad Ali backed up what he said, you know, and, you know, as a result, everybody thinks that that's how you get recognition. That's how you get the big fights and everything else. But at the end of the day, Dax, you got to back it up to some degree. This guy, Baby Miller, has not fought anybody. To pound your chest after beating Fred Cassie. I mean, Fred Cassie's a tough guy, but he's no world beater. He's not even a grizzly veteran. It just aggravates me. And to hear the announcers saying that, oh, he's got so much agility, he's so athletic. I'm saying to myself, what are you talking about? Your boy, Lennox Lewis, was athletic. You know, you look at Deontay Wilder, for a big guy, he's athletic. You know, you look at Klitschko, he's athletic. These are big guys that are athletic. You know, Baby Joe Miller, Baby Miller, and I don't want to even confuse him with Baby Joe Macy, but Jarrell Miller is, Big Baby, I should say, is nowhere near athletic. He's a fraud. But Errol Spence, he's the real deal.
This is true. Deontay Wilder actually made a little comment about Jarrell Miller when somebody had tagged him in a clip where Miller was calling him afterwards, and Deontay Wilder just said, "Who?"
Right, exactly.
Really, he has no, you know. And as for Anthony Joshua, the guy who we think is more than likely the best heavyweight in the division, he's got his next opponent is going to be announced this week. You know, I have good inside information. We're going to hear about his opponent this week. His next fight is not going to be at the O2 Arena, so that's how close this is to being announced. That part has been already leaked out.
Yeah, they know the date and the location, but it has to be in England. One of the problems that Anthony Joshua faces in fighting outside of England is that he has a criminal record from when he was a youth, and some countries won't even let you in. I think he could get a visa to fight here in the U.S. because it wasn't a violent crime. It was.
Listen, if he doesn't get the visa to come here, I'm going to grab a couple Mongolian wrestling coaches and I'm going to strip my clothes off and protest.
Don't do that. You'll scare the hell out of all those Mongolians and us too. But
you missed that on the Olympics, didn't you?
I saw the clip of it, but I didn't watch as much of the Olympics as I should have. Except I did get a kick out of I did see the Shakur Stevenson final, and I felt bad for Stevenson for losing and how crushed he was. But when you look at the fight, he kind of. He had the fight in his hands if he would have come out and fought the way he did earlier in the fight, but he basically gave it to his opponent, Rabansky Ramirez out of Cuba, by pulling a Floyd Mayweather. But the best part of it was Floyd Mayweather acting like he's already signed him, and Stevenson saying, "I haven't signed with anybody, so I'm going to go home and look at my options," which I love.
Stephen Donnelly. The Irish fighter, he'll be flying over here to the States in a couple months. He's going to speak to a promoter about signing a contract to go pro. So I'll keep you updated on that.
I like him, and I like the fact that he had the you-know-whats to tell it like it was in his controversial loss.
So look for him to turn pro soon. And last thing on that, just really, Claressa Shields, great job. You did fantastic. You just totally dominated. 2 Olympic gold medals in a row. What more can you say about her? I can't wait until she turns pro.
Yeah, when I spoke to her at the Women's Hall of Fame, not last year but the year before, and she had that gold medal. She was hesitant. Whether she was ever going to turn pro. She had her sights on the Rio Olympics, but has she indicated that she's going to turn pro?
I don't think there's anything ever been really said, definitively, but it's a hope. We're hoping.
Yeah, no, anyway, I think she's good for women's boxing.
The other news.
Okay.
All right, so
yesterday's
card, that was actually a very good card. Errol Spence is definitely the truth, isn't he?
Yeah.
No questions there. Keith Thurman, what do you got to say now there, buddy? Keith was talking a lot leading up to this fight. He was going to use Leonard Bundu as a way to gauge Errol Spence. Well, Errol Spence, I wonder how that gauge is right now, considering, last night he landed 63% of his power punches. That's amazing against a guy like Bundu, who, even at 41, he's so mobile and he's so awkward. Spence early on, Bill, what impressed me is the fact that Bundu was having some success with that left hand. Yet, Spence was not deterred whatsoever, and he stuck to his game plan, and, he went in there and did exactly what he planned on doing. At no point in time was he bothered, whether or not it was the lack of power from Bundu that didn't seem to trouble Spence, or Spence was just that composed, and he was just going to make a statement as he wanted to when he came in, and that's exactly what he did. Completely agree about the referee. I think Bundu could have used that 8 count. Not that it would have mattered, but gosh, that knockout at the end was horrible. The way Bundu had his leg buckled underneath him, it was actually kind of scary. I thought for a minute he was going to fall out of the ring.
Yeah, that was Johnny Callis made a huge error there. The last time I saw something as dangerous as that was actually Holly Holm getting ruled a slip when Matisse really had her in trouble, and it was a hometown judge a hometown referee thinking he was doing her a favor, and he nearly got her killed. And that's sort of what happened with Bundu in that fight. He needed, even his look on his face was like he was saying he wasn't ready. My head is still filled with cobwebs. I think Johnny Callis put him in harm's way big time.
Every jab that Spence threw in that fight, he didn't throw a lot. He didn't, overly land his jabs, but he was using it as that range finder. And the ones he did land, because he was more or less target practice, but they were ones that were landed with authority. They were hard thudding jabs that were really hurting Bundu, and that allowed Spence to follow up with those power punches. I believe the lowest connect percentage of any of the rounds was 50%. I think in one round, Spence actually had almost an 80% connect rate, I think, in that final round with his power punches. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else in boxing is able to do that right now at that type of level.
Yeah, according to Punch Stats. I mean, they're great to chat about now, but and I think Errol Spence, but not during the fight, and NBC didn't do it as much. I thought that nothing to do with the fight, but I thought that Daniel Jacobs was horrific as a ringside analyst. I'm sure they could have done something better and gotten someone better than him, but I thought that Errol Spence definitely made a statement. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Kell Brook Triple G fight, if Kell Brook even goes back to welterweight. But end the story. Errol Spence Jr. is in line to fight him for that title in his next fight. So we'll see what happens.
And I love when he said, he can drop out of Triple G and fight me next, or he can fight me after the Triple G fight. But if he doesn't do that, just vacate and I'll fight somebody else.
Well, I was talking about that earlier on the show, Dax, and I wonder what the IBF would do, because this was an elimination fight between him and Bundu. So let's say, for example, if Kell Brook upsets Triple G and becomes a middleweight champion, or if he feels that he's much stronger and better, maybe the decision doesn't go his way, but maybe he feels stronger and better at middleweight or even junior middleweight, and he vacates the title, does the IBF award the title to Spence, or do they make him fight another fight? And who would be that guy? So far as I know, it was the only elimination fight. I would think that the IBF would want to put together another elimination between two top contenders and the winner facing Spence. This is all this is all jumping ahead to assuming Kell Brook doesn't go back to welterweight. But the way he's put on that weight and the way he looks, I'd be shocked if he goes back to welterweight.
It might be detrimental to his career to go back to welterweight, actually, because he has a lot of muscle on him. There was nothing on him that's loose. So, he doesn't have a lot of water weight to lose. And, when a fighter to lose that much muscle, which, in all reality, you'd have to lose at least a good 15 pounds of muscle, that can be very detrimental to a fighter. Plus, to drop down to that lower weight.
Exactly.
That's not 10 pounds or 15 pounds or even 20 pounds of water weight. People speak all the time about, well, this guy used to gain 30 pounds in between fights. But you know what? A lot of that was just water weight, and it's a lot easier to work that off. Kell Brook didn't have any water weight to lose. As far as if he doesn't fight Spence, I think they're going to have to come up with somebody else. And they're not just going to hand the belt to him. If they did that, I'd be very disappointed. After what they did with Tyson Fury, who had chose to rematch Vladimir Klitschko rather than face his mandatory, and they took that title from him, they would have to follow into suit and do something similar with Kell Brook. I mean, something similar with Errol Spence and an opponent, or else, that really makes them look bad.
Yeah, well, none of them look good, but a fight.
But still, you have to stick by. If you did one thing for one reason, then you're going to have to do the same thing with another fighter in another division.
Actually,
there's no way you can get out of that.
Actually, the sanctioning bodies make up their own rules as they go along. You know that. But anyway, the women's fight, which stole the show on Sunday night in Coney Island in Brooklyn, New York. Heather Hardy against Shalito Vincent. To be honest with you, Dax, I thought the fight was legitimately a draw. I think the judges, just like I said to you when you broke down that fight, I said I'm picking Heather Hardy in a controversial decision win. It was controversial in my eyes. What do you think?
I think the scores were controversial.
Right.
In no way can I see where a 99-91 took place. The 97-93 wasn't too far off.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
96-94.
96-94. If Heather wins the fight, 96-94 is the right score. I mean, if she wins, I had to fight 95-95. I had to fight a draw.
I don't agree.
Okay, well, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I mean, even
mine matters.
You think? But the bottom line is that if you look at the replay, when they announced the first score, 95-95, Shalito Vincent's corner were all nodding their head. They felt it was an even fight.
I think, when I broke that fight down, what happened, what I said was going to be Shelley's biggest mistake is exactly what happened. Shelley jabbed As a matter of fact, she abandoned her jab. There was 4 rounds where she literally, and I watched it. I'm watching closely. Literally, if she landed one jab, it was a grazing jab, and you really couldn't officially count it. 4 rounds, I think, and I think it was the even rounds. I think it was the second, the fourth, the sixth, and 7th or 8th, where she literally didn't land any, and that's what I had stated. She can't jab from too far away. What she also needed to do is on the outside, she needed to wait for Heather to come to her, and then before Heather was able to close that distance, she needed to close the distance on her. Shelly didn't do that. Heather did a good job with her jab at a distance, and to me, that was really the key, was that jab. Other than that, it was on the inside, it was very close. Even at times when Heather was letting loose those 3, 4, and 5 punch combinations, as I stated last week, she's very good at, and then moving to the side. As she would move to the side, Shelly did something that worked well for her. She would sneak in a counter punch and kind of throw Heather's rhythm off. But, for some reason, Shelly would step back again, and she would try and fight on the outside. And the one thing that I stated more than several times, I said, if you go back and listen to the show, Shelly cannot fall in love with that head movement. And that's what she did, and that's what allowed Heather to get to land those jabs, is Shelly moved her head back and forth too much, and she didn't give Heather Hardy any reason not to come in with the jab. And that's what cost her. On the inside, it was very even, but that jab was the key to that fight, and that's why I gave it to Heather by 2 points.
In the last 3 rounds, Heather was clearly tired. Her hands were down. She was just looking to land the jab. That's it.
Absolutely.
And
round 10 was Shelly's busiest round.
Shalito Vincent should have been all over her in those last 3 rounds. But I disagree. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Coach is with you. 96-94. I thought the fight was a draw. But and the way the judges on TV were saying, it was clearly Heather's round, the first round. I don't know about that, But anyway, it was an exciting.
I think it might have been Danny Jacobs or somebody when I watched the replay last night. I forget which one of them had an even or something like that through the midway point.
Well, I don't know. I was trying to block them out and just watching the fight. I was really excited that they put on a show, which boxing needs, and I was equally excited of how many fans came to see that fight. I mean, it was clearly. We saw Errol Spence in that arena, but the fans, the live fans were definitely there for the ladies. But it was a good fight.
3,723 was the official attendance.
How many?
3,723.
Not bad. But I think it also just shows, whether it helps women's boxing or not, it shows that, the skill set of both of these women were nothing spectacular. It really wasn't. But, I think that they were evenly matched, which is the reason why the fight was so entertaining.
You're correct on that.
Oh, geez, thanks, aspect. Man. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Well, the reason why I'm saying that is I've been having these debates with some people on social media, and a few people who are professional or either professional fighters, or they have managed or trained female fighters. And one of the things that I stated to them was, a fight like this, was great for the women, but it needs to incorporate more women. The biggest issue with the American promoters and the women fighters is the fact that they're billed as one of 2 ways. Either they're billed as these glamorous girls, and that's all you see. Take a Heather Hardy, for example, who has the heart of a fighter, but every time you see her, she's always billed as the pretty girl. And when she comes in there and has a brawl, it makes it hard for for serious fans or even casual fans to take it seriously when they see her in there against another woman who isn't really doing anything technical. Now, the promoters here had a great opportunity, Bill, when you and I were with the WBF. At that point in time, the WBF had all the top female fighters in the world. They had better fighters than the WBC, better than the WBO, IBF, you name it, they had the best. You had everybody but Cecilia Brækhus. You had, at one point in time, Holly Holm. You had Anne-Sophie Matisse. You had Christina Hammer. You had Nicole Wesner, and the list goes on. And we offered these women here in the States opportunities at one of the minor titles, and we offer them opportunities at the chance at fighting for the vacant titles, and nobody wanted to invest that time, nobody wanted to invest that money, because nobody wanted to pay that sanctioning fee, which at that time was a lot lower than what I know the other sanctioning bodies are paying. And I would promise them, listen, if they fight for a minor title, make one defense, and we will get them a title shot with one of the big champions over in Europe, where they're headlining. And nobody wanted to invest in that. And and a lot of these women here, take a Serrano type, they would have beaten most of those females over there that were holding world titles, brought that back over here, and that talent pool from the other countries would have came over here, and they would have been able to build on the momentum of that. But they turned that down. Instead, a fight like this, which was great for the fans, it was very exciting, but it's not going to go any further, because a lot of people are going to see exactly what you've been critical about is, something, it was just a lot of slugging, it was a lot of brawling, and even during the fight, and they made note of that, at the press conferences, how it's kind of a beauty versus a beast type thing. Shelly Vincent, who I like, she's a great person, does a lot for the kids, but, she wears the straight jacket, she has the mask, and then you see Heather all the time, with glamour shots. So this isn't, until these promoters change, no matter how exciting these fights are, the promoters are going to continue to crush women's boxing.
Yeah, well, you know what? They can't deny that these two sold tickets, and Shalito Vincent said, hey, let's fight the next one in Providence. You could see a 3-fight trilogy here. It'd be interesting to see what they do next, because, who else is out there for Heather Hardy? I mean, the women's divisions are not loaded with that many fighters that will produce action-packed, entertaining fights like this one did. So, if I'm the promoter of these two, I would do it again. But
well, she's a featherweight now. I think the only real featherweight here that she would be able to fight is Amanda Serrano, and that would be, I know that they train together, they spar together a lot, but that would be actually quite a mismatch, and I don't think Lou DiBella would be willing to risk that.
No, she's way too big for. Both of them are too big for her. Definitely.
For who? For Amanda?
Yeah. I think they're both too big for Amanda. They were welterweights, right?
No, they're featherweights.
Who's featherweights? Shelly Vincent and Heather Hardy, I thought, were fighting at welterweight.
No, they're featherweights. They're tiny. Shelly Vincent is only 5 foot tall, and that's being generous.
I thought they were welterweights in that fight.
No, and Heather's only 5'5". No,
you're right. They're featherweights. They're featherweights.
Remember, matter of fact, I think this is their. That was yesterday was their second official bout at featherweight.
Yeah, no, you're right. For some reason, I thought they were welterweights, but yeah, you're right. Amanda Serrano would be the fighter. I mean, she's another one that's been coddled. So.
Yeah, well, or maybe they can fight some. The girl from up in Canada, the veteran, even though she's past her best days, Olivia Drula, or and I don't even think most of the women, the other women, the top female fighters in New York. The problem is they're so scattered around in the weight classes.
Yeah,
there's really nobody in the same weight class to fight.
Well, the pool of women fighters isn't that big, and the last few years with them following the men and cherry picking and stuff, you just don't have the big names. The biggest names fought each other, and you're right. Serrano, I'm sorry, is another name, but I don't know about the world stage. She's been overprotected, but she can fight. I've called several of her fights, but. Anyway.
The Ilya Nunez fight, we still talk about that to this day.
Nunez is a tough fighter. That fight was in Chicago. I called one of them. I know that they fought. I think they fought twice, but anyway.
Yeah, they did fight twice. The one in Chicago is the one that you called. That was exciting.
Yeah, no doubt about that. But anyway, Dax, great job as usual. We'll look forward to you later in the week. All right.
Yeah, later on in the week, and I'm going to keep an eye out for that. That opponent of Anthony Joshua should be announced at any point in time, and who knows? From what I understand, and from the reaction, who knows? It might just be Jarrell Big Baby Miller. He may get that mouth shut quicker than we think.
Well, The funny thing is I think everybody wants to see that, but I think that's a step down in competition for Anthony Joshua because he's proven that he's definitely above Miller, and the naysayers will give him a hard time for fighting Miller. But I agree. I think he does need his mouth shut, and Anthony, any of the names that he's calling out will beat him. So he's a fraud. He's a fraud. But an easy payday for Anthony Joshua. If I was him, I'd take it and set up the fight for the kid Joseph Parker. So
it'd be an easy fight for Joe Parker. That name never came out of his mouth, huh?
No, but what I'm saying is Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua are going to be fighting. So maybe they're going to give, because Joseph Parker, remember, he fought 2 back-to-back fights fairly close to each other. So maybe Anthony Joshua takes care of Miller real quick and then sets up Anthony Joshua against Joseph Parker fight. Waiting.
That's the fight that everybody wants to, that a lot of people want to see because that's ushering the new era of heavyweights, and we don't know what's going to happen to Tyson Fury. And if that fight with Vladimir Klitschko is ever going to take place, considering now, I believe officially it's going to court. I believe I believe that Vladimir Klitschko had officially filed the lawsuit against Tyson Fury.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think Tyson
It's going on a year that Tyson Fury has had that belt.
Well, I think Tyson Fury doesn't want to fight anymore. I think if I were Tyson Fury, I would just retire as an undefeated champ and walk away. He's set for life money-wise. He's been frugal. He's not really wasting his money, and he did what he set out to do. He beat Klitschko. That Klitschko is the one that wants to fight because his time is ticking away. So anyway, all right, my man. We'll talk to you later in the week.
All right, everybody. Enjoy the day.
Take care. That's Dax Khan. Check out his column up on BillyCBoxing.com. So yeah, just to get you up to date. It's a shame about the men's final in the bantamweight division in Rio. Robisky Ramirez out of Cuba won a split decision over Shakur Stevenson out of Jersey. This was the fighter that my man Larry Hazard was talking about. It was a very close fight. Ramirez took round 1. Stevenson took the second round, according to the judges, but failed to fight that same way aggressively in the third round. He kind of took his foot off the gas and did what I hate to see in young fighters. He tried to steal it, similar to a cherry picker I know. And at the end, he lost 2-1 and picked up the silver medal in the bantamweight division, and the gold went to Ramirez. Stevenson had a hard time taking that loss, breaking down, and had never lost a fight before. It was comical to hear the cherry picker himself say, "I came all the way to Brazil to support the athletes of the United States, but while enjoying the events, I had one goal in mind, and that was to extend a warm welcome to Shakur Stevenson into the Money Team family. We're connecting true future stars worldwide," which turned out to be bullshit, which most of Floyd Mayweather's career is, because Stevenson straightened that right the F out when he says, I haven't signed with anybody, so I'm going to go back home and look at all my options. I'm a free agent. I applaud Stevenson because Money Mayweather doesn't do anything for any fighters. As a matter of fact, all of his fighters under the Mayweather banner aren't very good. Mayweather himself, Floyd Mayweather Jr. himself, is the best fighter that Mayweather Promotions has. So if I'm a young fighter, I'd think twice about signing with Mayweather Promotions, at least at this stage. Maybe it would come into play a little bit later. And speaking of play, how about Manny Pacquiao? He played in the Philippine Basketball Association. That's PBA for you abbreviators. And he scored more points in that game than he did throughout his Philippine Basketball Association career. Well, let me rephrase that. He tied his career point total in one game. He scored 3 points. He hit a 3-point shot and he got a 4. I'm sorry, yeah, he did break his record and shot a free throw to get 4 points. He had previously only had 3 points to his career. So now he's got a career points accumulation of 7 points. Attaboy, Manny. You're a future basketball star. 4 points in a game, 3 points prior to that, 7 points total for your pro basketball career. Gosh, how do you do it? How do you do it, Manny? And give you one more update. Top Rank has signed Timothy Bradley to a 2-year extension and is promising the return of Timothy Bradley shortly. One other boxing news or note that I want to mention, Michael the Artist Perez, a lightweight division, 24 wins, 1 loss, and a couple of draws out of Newark, New Jersey, is set to fight Peter Petrov, who's 37-4 with a couple of draws out of Russia for the WBA lightweight elimination fight. These two guys are going to be fighting each other with the winner set to fight for the world title. Also on that card, Jojo Diaz will be fighting the other elimination fight on the Canelo Smith pay-per-view. So we'll see what happens because Cancio is now fighting Diaz, like I said, as the co-main event. So the winner of that fight and then the winner of the Petrov Perez fight will fight for the title. So our trivia question, which is a tough one, and I'm going to give you a hint today. What former world champion was recruited not once but twice from the audience to substitute for a fighter who wasn't able to appear? Basically, a fighter didn't show up. They tapped this guy on the shoulder with his bag of popcorn ready to watch the fights, and they said, hey, can you fill in? And he did, not once but twice. He was a former world champion. I told you guys that he fought prior to 1925. But let me tell you this. I'll give you a big hint. This guy, his name, there was actually 2 of these fighters with the same name. There were actually 2 of them. And this particular time, the year in which these 2 substitutions took place, fell between 1910 and 1915. So the 2 substitutions took place between 1910 and 1915, and the guy that did it, actually there were 2 guys named the same name, but this one was a former world champion. So if you're the first one to email me, Billy@TalkinBoxing, that's TalkinBoxing.com, with the correct answer, you'll win a great prize. This is the last day I'm going to do it. I'll move on because this is a tough one. On this day, August 22nd in 1939, one of my favorite fighters of all times, and actually Rocky Marciano's favorite fighter of all time, was on this day in 1939. Lou Ambers wins a 15-round decision over Henry Armstrong to win the world lightweight title, and that took place at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. On this day in 1969, Ruben Olivares knocks out Lionel Rhodes in the 5th round to win the world bantamweight title, and that took place in Inglewood, California. On this day in 1929, Willie Lamorte wins a 15-round decision over Corporal Izzy Schwartz to win the New York World Flyweight title. It took place in Newark, New Jersey. On this day in 1910, Abe Attell knocks out Eddie Marino in the 3rd round in a 9-title fight in Canada. Attell was the world featherweight champion. On this day in 1947, Willie Pep knocks out Jock Leslie in the 12th round to retain his world featherweight title in Flint, Michigan. And finally, on this day, August 22nd in 1957, Floyd Patterson knocks out pro debuting Pete Rademacher in the 6th round, Pete Rademacher, as you know, this was a trivia question, won the 1956 gold medal in the Olympics. But anyway, Floyd Patterson knocked him out in the 6th round. He retained his world heavyweight title, and that fight took place in Seattle, Washington. Hey, man, make sure You tune in tomorrow morning, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.